Doug here. Welcome to Tech Dad. Today we're going to be continuing on in our series about IT careers. So in our last video, I described a bunch of different IT careers that you might be interested in and a little bit about them. But we're going to go deep dive now. The first one we're going to talk about is developers or engineers. So let's dive right in. So what exactly does a developer or an engineer do? Well, they basically write code. By code, I mean computer software code. Typically, they're writing this code for products that are being built by the company they're working for, or if they're a self-made business person, they'll be writing their own code for their own products. They also might be writing code as a part of a project. So these types of developers are often used to create parts of a piece of code that is then combined together with a larger application. So let's talk a little bit about some of the characteristics of a developer and engineer. First of all, they're technical people and they're proficient in their craft. So one of those things would be they're proficient about the programming languages that they're using. I'm going to share with you here in a graphic the different rankings in terms of programming languages in popularity. And as you can see, there's quite a few that are very popular, and one of them being JavaScript. So I would recommend to you that you study this list and determine, do some research on the different languages to find out which one's most interesting to you. So why do we have different languages? We have different programming languages because they're typically built for a specific purpose. Either the type of application that's being built, whether it's a highly technical, down to the machine level type of programming language like assembler, or something high level that like Go or something like that, where it's much higher level and focused on a particular use case. So myself, over my career, I've learned 13 programming languages over that time. Was it because I needed them all? Well, I became interested in different ones for different purposes, just like we outlined. In my career, my actual job, of course, I did have some that were required. If you're looking for a job as a developer or an engineer, you can expect that you're going to have to show your proficiency. They'll probably give you a coding test that you'll have to complete within a certain amount of time and ensure that the code works. And by the way, it's really hard to cheat at those. So for you, those of you thinking that, well, you'll just Google the answer, that's not how it works. They have preventative things in place to keep you from doing that. So more characteristics. So these developer engineering folks, they typically like to work alone. You'll often find them in cubicles with their headsets on, listening to music while they code, or they might work from home. But they are sometimes needed in a team environment. So we'll talk about agile methodologies a little bit further on down the line here. But there's a recourse for them to get together to discuss their code and how it works with others. And that's as part of what we call a scrum. And so their temperament is often, I want to work alone, and then I'll work in a team as necessary. So you might have seen some weird videos or TV shows of these highly geeky looking people in dark rooms with computer monitors all around them. So those are your typical technical developer type folks. Okay. We used to say that, just throw a pizza underneath the door to these folks and they'll be happy. Another characteristic is they're very attentive to details. When you're coding, you have to think of everything. You have to think of every path that a user might take. You have to think of every piece of necessary functions or calculations that an application might need to do. And then you need to test that. So you typically write them in smaller pieces, often called functions or objects. And then those are reused into a larger piece where you're combining those functions and objects together in order to build a full-fledged application. But you need attention to detail because you must remember that we talk about artificial intelligence, things like that, but actually writing computer code, there's no shortcuts. You have to think of everything. And when you don't think of something, that typically relates to something called a bug, and that the software is not working as expected, or the calculation is not happening correctly and giving wrong or error messages. So you have to be someone that's focused on detail and enjoy that. You need a flexible personal life. If you have 4 kids at home and married, and you're taking your kids to sports and all that kind of stuff, you're going to have a problem. You're going to have conflict because often these folks have to work overtime or in the middle of the night or late hours to get this code working and done correctly. We'll talk in a minute about holidays in a second, but it's very rigorous in terms of your commitment when you're a developer engineer. If you're writing an application and it's deployed in a production environment and there's a bug that's keeping the customer from doing something and it's critical to that customer functioning, you can expect a call in the middle of the night to get up and find out what's wrong with it and help fix it. It's a dedicated type of person that would enjoy that. Obviously, with a large family and large family commitments, that's going to be rough on you in terms of keeping up with that. I mentioned long weekends, holidays, and things like that. Well, you can expect, if you're a developer engineer, that any 3-day weekend that happens during the year, you're typically going to be working, because that's a great time where everybody is off for you to install your programs in the enterprise, because people aren't using them. They're off having fun. But you'll be instead working to do the upgrade or the initial install on that long 3-day weekend. The reason, of course, we do that is because we want to minimize downtime for the end users. And we can't, if the application is upgraded or installed and it takes a while to get it configured properly in production, you want that extra day on the 3-day weekend in order to get it installed and working properly. So often your 3-day weekends will not be 3-day weekends. Instead, you'll be working. So you want to keep that in mind as well. In terms of compensation, as you progress along, you'll start with a lower salary in the beginning, of course, just like any other profession. But as you get good and as your tenure increases in terms of number of years that you're doing this job, your salary will be commensurate with how good you are and your commitment to getting things done. Good developers can make some really good money, but their commitment, as we've talked about, is substantial to their career and to getting these applications to work. Let's talk a little bit about education. I mentioned that I learned 13 languages. Well, how did I learn them? Some of them I learned in college, but a lot of them, of course, with the advent of the internet, there's all kinds of courses that you can learn these programming languages. There's test environments where you can play around with them. You can go through different online classes, like I said, to learn them. Some of them have some certifications related to them, but most of them are you take the class and then you prove yourself through over time with that language, using it over and over again. So you'll need a computer science or a business IT kind of degree from college in order to get involved in this type of career. Um, it's very interesting that you could learn one of these programming languages, of course, right online, as we mentioned. But the computer science degrees and business, you know, IT type career degrees are important because they give you the rest of it. You can't just write a program and then not understand how it interacts with the network or how it scales and what are the issues around security and authentication. You need a broad education about how your program is going to be used in the real world. And so that's why you need one of these minimum 4-year degrees in terms of this. Well, folks, thanks for joining me today. Hopefully this gave you some insight. Please like and subscribe and leave some comments below if you have any thoughts on this career choice. And if you'd like to learn more, please suggest some other topics related to this that you would like. Thank you very much, and we'll talk to you next time.